Welcome to Raising Funds for World Domination, day number 210. Orthoplex 64, how's it going? Okay, time for the daily update. Once again, there is no updates on the status of the supposed appeal that the landlord apparently intends to file. I have not worked on the Shopify Store today. As for the marketing video, the next video is scheduled to go out tomorrow. And it's also on the theme of marketing. And after that, there's another video that I'll probably hold back on, because I think the next videos after that will take a bit of time to put together. The last release of the terminal block mining game with the lists, that was 10 days ago. And today we're just continuing. So last night, prime factors of 210, 2 times 3, and 5 times 7. There's seems to me there must be I'm sure there's a math word for that type of number. No, not natural, normal or something. Primorals, they're called. Oh, okay. Yeah, I figured this. There's a word for every type of weird property that a number can have. Actually, I just noticed I should probably make my screen a bit bigger. You can't really see the. I don't have enough screen real estate. Let's see. I have to make the chat a bit smaller. I kind of like it big though. I'll just continue with this. Okay. So I've kind of cleaned up some of the event propagation for when you change selections. And now nice, if you change selected item, changes the selection in all menus. But that does not happen for crafting menus. But we can make that happen. So I guess what I'll do, actually, I'll move the actual crafting list information into the client block model context class, which is kind of where I guess it should have been all along. So I guess that would also, right now there's only a fixed number of crafting recipes, but if you add in the future, if I have the feature of adding a crafting recipe at runtime, currently that won't work. I didn't copy the whole thing. There's some like line limit in Vim somewhere that always cuts off when you yank a certain number of lines. What did I have for dinner? Let's see, for dinner. Oh, I had the last bit of that taco bowl. And also, for lunch, I had some like beef stew and rice stuff. Hey bro, can you teach me how to make a CPU one more time? Oh, no problem. It's easy. First you get a rock, then you smash the rock. Now you've got 98% concentrated silicon dioxide. Now you just have to purify it to 99.99% silicon dioxide. And then, there's some other steps in there somewhere. Then put lightning inside the rock. Yep. You just have to get your chromium etched photolithographic quartz mask, and you're all set. It's not quite what I want. Thank you, no problem. I'm glad you got something from the video. So NVIDIA beat earnings. They followed your video on how to make a CPU. Oh, that's good. I'm glad that they were able to get so much success from it. See, the tricky part is the photomask part. Is this Fortnite? It's close. This is terminal-based video game development, where I've been working on building a terminal-based video game where you can simulate the process of mining blocks of iron ore. Perhaps have a follow-up video, how to make a GPU. It's actually pretty much the same thing. You just gotta design your different circuit. I guess there's maybe some differences in like the interfacing and stuff, but it's just there's certain things like probably that. I guess the cooling is probably more important. Gotta design a big heat sink to go on it, but I think that's a pretty small percentage of the design process. I was actually thinking about having a follow-up to the video. I definitely have an idea for it, what I do, but I just don't have enough time to execute on that. Actually, I did filming. That's the other update I forgot to mention today. I did some filming today. Okay, that's now fetching the crafting recipe from the client block model context. Oh, actually, I forgot to put a handler for it. I do wonder from what era someone working in their basement could make an equivalent state-of-the-art CPU. Late 70s, early 80s. Actually, if you go to the how to make a CPU video, and there's a guy who commented on it. I pinned his comment. If you go, his name is Sam Ziluv, and if you watch his channel, he has videos on his channel about actual homebrew CPU manufacturing. He's got a lot of the equipment he has. It would cost quite a bit of money to acquire, but some of it is like cheap, used eBay stuff. Late Kitty asks thoughts on the Steam machine. I actually don't know. I don't know anything about it. I think I saw. So I'm kind of out of the loop on that stuff. I've never used Steam. I've never played a Steam game. I think I saw one thumbnail from Linus Tech Tips where he was reviewing it or something. So I've heard of that, but I've no. Yeah, I don't even know enough about what it is to even comment. Thank you for the $2, though. I think my answer does not justify the donation. Is it like a PC or is it a Linux based system? I don't know why. I don't know if I saw it in a thumbnail or something, or in some kind of, maybe on Hacker News or something. Is it that maybe it's something Linux based? Linux PC that runs Steam's own Linux distro. Okay. Actually, that's that could be a really big deal. Now that I'm thinking about that, like for the future of like open source and like the future development of software, that could actually be a really big deal, because from my understanding on the outside, anti-cheat detection has been that's a really for specific games, anti-cheat measures are a very important part of the game, the playability of the game. So I think there's been a trend toward like being hostile to systems where you can't actually like on Linux systems, you can't lock down the anti-cheat stuff as much, because on Linux, the user actually has more access to the system. And the fact, if like Steam is writing their own Linux distro, then, and I'm speculating, I have no idea if there's going to be better support, but my assumption is that like if Steam is making the distro, like the question would be, the question about like what is a distro, why would you make your own distro, the modules and stuff, and like the kernel interface, kernel version, and support for the anti-cheat stuff. So like if anti-cheat breaks the game catastrophically, people are going to complain about that, and that's going to be like the number one thing that people complain about. And Steam themselves is in the exact perfect position to be the one to like fix that, or push forward support for the anti-cheat. And I think even if it meant somehow they had, I don't know, some locked down binary or something like that where users still couldn't access it, the fact that it's still part of the whole Linux ecosystem means like people who start young people who start playing games are going to get introduced to Linux. They're not going to be on some super lockdown. They're not going to just abandon Linux for Windows and then subscribe to it as a service. So yeah, I think that I guess that would be my one observation about like the potential long-term like snowballing implications of it. But I don't know, maybe I'm reading into it too much. Arch based, so it's going to be on the bleeding edge all the time. I hate kernel level anti-cheat. Yeah, I don't really play games at all. I've never played a Steam game, so I'm not sure how much of an inconvenience it is. Maybe Linux will get bigger in the PC space. I'm actually kind of thinking that it's likely that Linux probably has one in the desktop space, and it will probably continue to thrive there. Like I think that Windows no longer considers, or Microsoft no longer really considers Linux like a competitor or like a threat. And I think that's likely because everything is going elsewhere. Like everything is getting tied to phones now. A lot of stuff is mobile. And like the era of Microsoft making $100 selling one copy of Windows to install on your PC, that's not where Microsoft makes their money now. It's like a totally different business model these days. So I think like if Linux took over, I don't even think they'd care. They'd probably like find some way to like sell you software service on Linux or something. Anti-cheat is already a problem with Steam Deck. Such games just aren't available for it. Yeah, I imagine the fact that like Steam is actually involved in the system, that probably because I would imagine that's like one of the number one requests they would get is like fix this anti-cheat thing, and putting together a distro. Like I don't know how the anti-cheat works, but I'm sure this is probably they might even be thinking of like if they're going to make their own distro, it might even make sense for them to make their own, to write their own custom anti-cheat module and then like add that to the official kernel or something. Like just figure out the problem once and for all, and then like just completely tackle that problem themselves. Because if they solve that, even if like programmers had to talk to like some new API, you just tell the programmer like, okay, call this function to set up your anti-cheat, and you're good to go, and they'll do it if that's all it takes. Because if you're competing, because if it's easy and possible, most games will support it. Because you're like, why wouldn't you? You could just make extra money. And if your game is the only one that doesn't support it, it's kind of a competitive pressure. What is your opinion on software patents? I think, well, historically, software patents have really just been about, they've only really made sense for like larger companies to kind of extort money from each other. So like what a bunch of companies would, like it's a lot of work to file a patent too. And I don't know. I think I actually don't even hear much about software patents these days. And like pre ChatGPT AI explosion, it kind of seemed like the topic of software patents was dying down. But these days with AI and large language models, I think the court's going to be jammed up with way more cases on like copyright infringement from similar seeming code that was generated from a large language model. But yeah, I don't know. It really, I think software patents these days seems to only be a thing that would have any relevance for a large company. And in those cases, the cases that are, I think clear wins are stuff where there's a very specific, like extremely proprietary set of details, design details. Like for example, I don't know, like a set of parameters, or like a networking protocol for a specific satellite or something, where it's like $100 million license to like if you look into the telecommunications protocols that are used by cell phones, and look into the pages and pages of documentation about how the packet structure is, stuff like that. I think there's kind of actually some merit to maybe patenting that. And so if you just like literally steal, a bunch of design work from something like that, then as a regular individual, even a small business, maybe we wouldn't really. It's not something a small business would even be able to use. But if you're like a $1 billion corporation, it does kind of make sense to maybe patent that. So your competition doesn't just like steal your protocol exactly, instead of like, because like for a communication protocol, you might have to do a bunch of testing to tune the parameters correctly. And there's actually work involved and cost involved in tuning the parameters. Patent pools for telecommunications. If you get your patent in it, you're on the money. Oh, that's my phone. Yeah, I think from my perspective, I don't really think it's like any individuals. Like if you get a patent, you get it while working at a company somewhere. It's not really something much for individuals. My favorite satellite networking protocol is broadcast anything you receive without authentication or anything. If I recall correctly, it comes from 70s use and still in operation. Yeah, I guess that's a decent protocol. I guess for like when you think about just like at that point, your satellite becomes almost like an analog device. It's just like as long as you're not doing anything with the information, then because it's kind of like if you shine a light on a mirror will shine whatever shines onto it back in a different direction without authentication. And there's no way to hack the mirror because it's just like an analog device. FTC might have a problem with that, or whatever the Canadian equivalent is. Well, I guess if it's a satellite, I think that would make a lot of sense for satellites, because you would just want to. That protocol would just let you extend the range of stuff. So if there's any way to route that information to where you want it to get to, that algorithm would work. If you just everything repeats everything. I guess for certain configurations, though, you could lead to a lot of noise. I guess probably ideally what you'd want to add to that is like a randomized delay, because otherwise if you have if too many things are repeating two different messages, then you could end up with congestion that never gets resolved. Check to cast. Would that work? Tragedy of Commons. If someone can make a buck in public spaces, they will. Yeah, I guess, well, for some of that stuff, though, you need or for like satellite communication, you need a pretty big antenna. I think there are still, like, there are some satellites up there that you can like communicate with and send commands to, but they don't really do very much, and it requires a lot of dedication. There's not a lot of reward for it. I forget how to cast this. What error does this give me? Incompatible types. Just as I suspected. Right, I'm gonna have to Google it. I think I've encountered this before, but I forget how I solved it. I don't want to suppress warnings. maybe I have to cast to whichever non-abstract list subclass it actually is. I have, so I'm casting this. Class that implements list. No, so, I mean like array list. Was that what you meant, like array list? Oh man, that's a lot of ads. Why does the Java compiler warn us? Suppress the warning. Avoid using raw types. This doesn't really tell me how to solve it. Suppress warnings. Maybe you need question mark extends crafting recipe. Yeah, maybe I could do this on there, but then, well, let's see. What about this? We're Googling today? Yeah. So it's actually just a warning, but Might have to extract values from getObject and then add a second list. The second step. I don't want to do that. I want to just some of this design was just to make it so that when I send objects, I just go through the enum, and based on the enum, then take whatever the object is and cast it as necessary. Unchecked cast. Goal was always one-liner, but second best is a two-liner. I'm using this actually in a bunch of places. Illegal start of type. This won't work, but I'll do it anyway. I built a tic-tac-toe. What's next? Oh, I think was it you who's doing? You were learning some JavaScript, or was it Python? Depends what you where you want to go with your programming eventually. You can always just take whatever kind of lofty goal you have and keep dividing it in half, and do kind of concrete, bite-sized things. Challenge yourself. Yes, unchecked cast. Let's see if that is giving me an error on that line. '86 unchecked cast. So it still doesn't like that. Oh, you know what? That's doing getObject. UI model. So this is probably going to give me a similar thing. Don't know what I want to do. Kind of like backend networking. Those things look hard to bite. There's really a lot there too. You said backend and networking. Those are pretty, like you could spend your entire career just learning backend databases, but also like networking and server stuff. I guess you can just go through the gamut of, like whatever. I guess there's like database stuff, database engine. Does that interest you more than like sending packets and network communication? That would help you decide what to do next. You just add a generic type to this work item result class, then use that type instead of object. Yeah, I think maybe this this list method approach, I think I might be able to get that to work somehow. Now what will this do? What does that do? What is the return type of getList? Is it list of object? Currently, it is this. I guess I actually don't quite understand the difference. Like I know I've done some generics in Java and had to use this. See what just that does. On line 87. So it's complaining with that now. think this was kind of like an oversight in the design of Java, as I've seen so many issues around this, like generic, I think type pruning, I think it's called. Object cannot be converted. You know what maybe I need is so I think theoretically I should be able to do this. Manually. So crafting recipe extended class. Have that class that is extended be the generic. I think this here will work. That's working. It's getting to the next step. I just need to add something to return this. Yeah, I may just add a helper method, because I think that's the fundamental problem, is if you have a list of objects, there's nothing to say. I guess Java's not smart enough, or doesn't have enough information to make the determination about to do the automatic type checks for every element in the list. So if you just do it yourself, it works. I'll maybe refactor that part later, and then for now I'll just get this working. Crafting current recipe list. So complaints about the previous unchecked cast, but not the new one. So I think the issue is that when you do the cast with the new type as the parameter in the list, then technically to detect a casting error, you have to attempt to apply that cast to every single element in the list, but I guess Java's not smart enough, or it doesn't. Maybe it's because of performance reasons, because if your list is like 10 billion elements, then you would have to like, because you can get runtime exceptions if you try to cast something to something it's not, but it would have to do that attempt to everything in the list. But if you just go ahead and actually do that type of cast, then it's just a simpler. You're like explicitly doing that operation. I'm not you'd have to ask like someone who's a bit more familiar with like the compiler internals of Java. I'm not super sure actually. I just know that actually I've seen even in the latest versions of Java, they even encourage you to like not include the type explicitly, which I kind of don't really like, because I like having that. If you just leave the brackets blank, then it can be anything, but then that causes bugs sometimes. But it's a trade-off, because if you explicitly define it, you have to write it. But you can catch compile bugs. I like to think I create apps. I would like to create a chess analysis application. I don't know. I guess you said before that networking and backend, but a lot of if you want to make a chess application, an analysis application, probably a lot of what you need would be presenting stuff in the user interface. So you probably want like a front end, like React.js and stuff. Maybe I can even just get rid of that. My extra type detection is not working. So I'll just keep it simple. And then here. Now what does this do? All right, we're back to where we were before. But we have new information. still think UI model. Then I have to define that. Actually, what I'm kind of trying to do is I just like to, like when I pass this information, I just want to like cast it to object and then uncast it. But it looks like this is actually working. Okay, so now the crafting list is stored in the block model context class. And I kept it simple. So that's good. Okay, now the other original thing I was going to try and do, which was when Robert went outside that one episode, he was getting anxiety. How big is the current file? I got none context. Oh, that's two different chatters. It was the same color, so I got confused. Yeah, I may do some future outdoor streams. We'll see. How big is the current file? I got none context. This file, it's 812 lines. Luckily, he can find length file using his favorite command. Yes, that's true. Or actually, I could even just look in Vim here. How do I do that with the inventory? I like the endvim command. Yeah, I think it's a pretty good command. I haven't had much time to play around with it, actually. You probably already answered, but what keyboard are you using? Sounds like it has brown switches. I'm not sure what that term means. Brown switches. This is actually just a crappy old laptop that I have here. I have a bunch of computers for this setup. I can't use my main laptop because the fan is just it spins at max RPM all the time, so it's just unpleasant. And then I've got a separate computer for the streaming. But yeah, just a basic laptop keyboard. How do you add new lines without entering insert mode? And there's probably multiple ways I do that. I think if I type YY, that says yank. And then if I do P, that just pastes. So for that, that's a common thing I do. And that doesn't, I don't have to enter insert mode. Do you have a favorite Vim feature that most people don't know about? I'm a huge fan of GA command, which shows what code point is under your cursor. I used to know a lot more Vim commands. When I first started learning it, I learned a whole bunch of different stuff, and then I kind of just forgot the things that I don't use much. A really common thing I use a lot is just jumping to the end of the file. So just Shift G to go to the end of the file. Brown switches are a type of mechanical switch on a keyboard and require non-linear forced trigger or press. Yeah, when I was back in school, I did think more about like, man, I should get one of those fancy mechanical programmer keyboards. But nowadays, that's just my priorities have reset. Now I just use whatever garbage keyboard is around. Should probably make this more efficient. And it's probably fine. Should make this more efficient. Moment of reflection. And I guess there's a lot of stuff in this code that's like really poorly done and inefficient, but a pretty good strategy is just make it like good enough, and then when I think it's fine to write stuff that's like maybe bad or inefficient, as long as it's still correct. But also if it's in a way that the cost of refactoring it in the future is very low. So if you're like if you're writing and it's just like garbage code, you're gonna have to throw it anyway. But like for that creating up that recipe list, I'm building up the list, rebuilding it every time. And the time to write that code was very small. So if I delete it, if I like completely throw away that solution and rewrite it more efficiently later, I'm not really wasting time. I'm just saving time. interface. Crafting recipe change work item. Do I even use that class? Nope, looks like it's not used. Integer cannot be cast to crafting recipe. On line 105. Oops. Well, that's not good. Oh, rats. I deleted the file. The crafting recipe. Or no, did I? Yeah, I don't want to delete this one. Okay, that's still there. What did I run? I ran this. Let's not run that again. Oh, I typed the name of the file. I tried to open the wrong file. That's why. Oh, that saved me. It's been a long while since I've been using Java. It's making me nostalgic. When did you start working on this game? A couple of years ago, I guess. Close call. Yeah, I guess it'd be salvageable. It's maybe like, I don't know, the past 10 minutes of work on that one file. Okay. So this code is now simpler. Okay, this might be working again. Okay, that simplifies some of the model for the crafting recipe list, as well as changing the selected item to use an integer instead of tracking the class. I think the last thing was so this will help me this will make it so in that edge case where I have two crafting lists open, then it'll send it to both. But also I'll probably reuse this event for, like, if something happens in some other window, I don't know, maybe from like help menu or something, then I may also send this event arbitrarily. UI notification type. expected it to. I've triggered this exception. Maybe it's not subscribing to it. Oh yeah, it's not. So this should crash. Excellent. Just as I expected. Now this should make it work in that edge case where there are two crafting lists open. Excellent. All right, it works in both cases. Hey man, it's been a while. How's the progress on conquering the planet? It's going pretty good. Tonight we raised another $2.82. We're getting pretty close to the goal of $12 billion. Actually, I think just a few more days, and we'll be at the goal pretty soon. We're getting there. I finished some edge cases to the crafting list. I don't know if you've checked out the terminal block mining game in a while. We got an actual crafting menu now, and there's also scroll bars, so if you have lots of items you can now check them out. And it also works with resizing. We conquered the Kitchener area and Laurier. Well, now siege Waterloo. I don't know about sieging. We just win hearts and minds, and then people join the cause anyway. All right, that's a little bit of progress for tonight. I'll be watching whenever I have time. Looking forward to where all this takes you in the future. Don't forget about us little guys when you make it big. Don't worry, I've got a list that I'll keep around somewhere. Well, actually, all the VODs are online. So when I get big and famous and rich, I'll make sure to go back and rewatch all the VODs. See all the commenters who asked for shoutouts. I guess I could probably do that with AI now. That's such a crazy thing to think. Like if you have like thousands of videos out there, AI can just like vacuum up all that data and then like build like a psychoanalytic profile on you. And I'm sure that governments are all doing that kind of stuff right now. Anyway, that'll be it for tonight. I'd hope to do more tonight, but I think that's it for the events that I wanted to, kind of outstanding events that I wanted to convert. I've moved the necessary game internal state into the client block model context. Next, I also, for those other threads, the chunk initializer. Oh yeah, actually the in-memory chunks thread. Player position. Interesting, I guess. Yeah, so the way this in-memory chunks thing works is to make the playable, it dramatically makes it a bit more playable. If this thing always only loads areas closest to the player, so every time it has to make a decision about what chunk to load next, it always does a sort on all chunks that are pending according to the player position. So this means, I guess for every one of these local player connections, I'm gonna have to have another copy of this thread. So like for the local split screen multiplayer, because each of them it's going to request the corresponding player position for that client model. but I'll think about that in future nights. I'll never change my profile username. Got dibs on the first nightly of the Earth's newest empire. Well, actually, if you check out, the real fans buy a sponsored block, and so they will be immortalized in this game forever, inside of the help menu, and then also eventually once I get around to implementing more features. See down here in the help menu, if you check out the Shopify Store, you can buy a custom block type. You can get your own dedication here. Yeah, actually, I need to add some more blocks to the store. There's only one left to buy at the moment, but there's a lot of chemicals out there, so I'll have to add some more. All right, that's it for tonight. We'll be back tomorrow night for day 211. Have a good night.